Well, hey man, it's great to meet you. And before we get into your latest album and your body of work and your history in music, I'd like to know how you survived COVID. That did its own little thing on all of us, especially the jazz community. How did you get through it, and how has it changed the way that you do things now?
Well, it was very disruptive. And I think one of the blessings in this situation was that we didn't know how long it was going to be. So I remember I came back from a tour at the end of February, and I had many trips planned, and then the world stopped. And I kept thinking, okay, well, by May, so the May stuff will happen. And then I said, well, I guess by August, and then by October. And it kept, creeping up and lasting longer. I think if I had known from the beginning that it would have been like pretty much 3 years, it would have been much harder. So that was one thing. And then once the vaccine came, so in 2021, in May of 2021, I started traveling again. And the first place I went to was Israel, where my family is from. And over there, they started the vaccination earlier than us. So they were already fully vaccinated by February. So when I arrived in May 2021, everything was open. And I was doing shows and eating with people and hugging people. And we were all vaccinated, and we thought that was it. And then, of course, the strains started to pop up. And I kept traveling, and in those days, you had to get getting tested before you come back, so that was nerve-wracking. But it was helpful that the world was half back. Yeah. But during that period where nothing was going on, we had some support from organizations who supported artists. The unemployment was a lifesaver because we all stayed afloat. And once a week, we would get together outdoor and have a jam session. And then when it got cold, we would go indoor somewhere big, a large room, and would have sessions that keep us alive. I lived not far from Central Park, so I would meet friends in the park, and we would have picnic. So we had a lot of social experiences that we don't have in our regular life. We're also busy going here, coming here, and everybody's somewhere, and when you're back, they leave, and all of that. So that was an opportunity that everybody was here. So socially, it was an interesting time. But other than that, it was a very lonely period.
Yeah.
All of us were sort of isolated. But in New York City, we weren't isolated as, say, we would be in suburbs.
Yeah, for sure.
And the other thing about it that was going on during the first period, it was very sad in New York. New York was a very solemn city. It was sirens going on all day, all night, nonstop. There were sirens. You would hear ambulances taking people to the hospitals. We would see those freezer trucks outside the hospital. We would see Field Hospital in Central Park. And then that 7 p.m. thing started where people would go out in the windows and clap and, pay tribute to the health and emergency workers. That became like a social life for everybody to come out. There were people performing, so like in some buildings, there was a routine. One person knew he was a singer, so he would sing. The other person was the flute player from the Philharmonic. He would play a song. So it was a sense of community that was interesting that didn't exist before.
Yeah.
And it gave us time to practice, to do things, to write, to get introverted. But I think that we are all in a post-traumatic stress syndrome, dealing with post-traumatic stress syndrome. And there's a lot that we don't remember on purpose.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of stuff that we kind of ignoring, which is those long days. I remember those days. I mean, I'm just telling you that we try not to remember it. But if I look back, where you say, okay, it's 6 p.m, what do I do? How about I'll make dinner? Wow, okay, it's 7 p.m, what do I do now?
Yep. And that's the reason why people say it was a blur, like all the timelines get blurred together. It's a part of that kind of a thing. So it has to feel good to have a new album come out. Love Letters is the latest album. Talk to me a little bit about how this album was put together.
Jerry Roach from Mighty Queen Records, he wanted me to do an album in that vein. I did an album for him before, for that time, Stories. That was my previous album. And we talked about having this piano-less quartet. So that was the initial idea, but it's something that I always enjoyed doing. I really love comping. I love comping for instrumentalists and vocalists. I love that the exchange. I love this idea of being open to other people's ideas and fitting into that and dancing together. So that was the seed of the idea. And Ingrid Jensen, the trumpet player on the album, she played on my previous album, Stories. So that's how that started, that relationship. I loved playing with her. We really enjoyed having a musical conversations. And so we had this idea since 2021, I think. And it was just about like, okay, it's time. We are ready to put an album. Can we put it together? And I had some songs that were brewing in my head for a while. So it all came to fruition kind of organically, but with those seed planted a while ago. Mm-hmm. And it's a kind of group that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Quartet or without piano. Not that I don't like piano, I love pianos.
Absolutely. So what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
Well, I think that what I hope all the time a listener will get from what they listen is a joy, that the beauty of the music suits them and puts them in another place. So first on an emotional level, just as you wish with art, but also make them think or, be exposed to different things. But if I say what we put into this music, which I hope comes out, is kind of love and camaraderie and the desire to make beauty together. None of us was trying to showboat or make a statement for themselves. It was really a collaborative thing. So I hope that comes out in the album.
So this journey in jazz, talk to me about where it began. Where were you born and raised? Early influences? How did this take flight?
Well, I was born in a little town called Dimona in Israel. It's in the south part of Israel in the desert, the Negev desert. My family left Tunisia in 1955. And I'm the youngest of 7 kids. So when they arrived in Israel, everything was barren. And that town was really just in the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle of nowhere. Outside of our apartment were the hills of the desert. So over there, we were pretty isolated. And the main thing for everybody was to survive. To have enough food on the table, do your homework, stay safe. But music always spoke to me. I mean, there was always music at home. Everybody in my family loved music. My parents would listen to Middle Eastern music, since that's what they come from. That's what we are. So I would listen to famous Egyptian artists and people like that. But the radio was always on. And then at age 11, I think it was, my brother decided that I should have music lessons. He is my oldest brother. There's 17 years between us. We're 7 in the family. Yeah. Wow. I'm the youngest, he's the oldest. So he was like a parent to me. My parents, they spoke Arabic, Tunisian. So when my father spoke some Hebrew, and my mom had to learn, and she spoke Arabic and French. She had to learn Hebrew when she arrived in Israel. And so you look at an immigrant family, say here in the US, where English is not their language. So my older siblings were the ones who would read the letters, who would look at the school stuff. And he kind of took on the responsibility of guarding our education, So one day I came home and they brought a guitar for me, just like, simple guitar from the next town, from the city, because we didn't have a music store there. And that's how the journey began. And I think that in honesty, it wasn't a choice that I made. It was sort of like made for me from the world, because everything converged. When I first played the guitar, I wanted to play Beatles songs and Leonard Cohen songs. I loved that, when I was 11, 12, 13, then I got into Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd. And then when I was in 16, I moved to another town in the center of Israel. It's a university town named Rehovot. And one of my friends in high school lived in the US. His father was an economic professor. So they spent a couple of years in Maryland. So he was exposed to jazz, and he turned me on to jazz. He turned me on to Weather Report, but also to Thad Jones and Mel Lewis. And then another friend that I knew told me about this great guitar player in Israel that was teaching. He was sort of like a Wes Montgomery kind of a bag, and I started studying with him. And he told me about Wes and Joe Pass, and then I discovered Jim Hall and Grant Green. And from then on, it just got expanded. The people I knew kept telling me about something else. And then somebody told me about New York and Barry Harris. You know, he had a school called Jazz Culture Theater. So I started saving my money, and when I was 22, I came to New York to study with him. And from then on, it was just like, that's it.
Excellent. So what was the first live jazz show you ever saw that blew you away?
Well, I used to go when we were in like 12th grade. We used to go to Tel Aviv. We would hitchhike to Tel Aviv and see a show of the local musicians. And they were nice. At that time, Israel became a sort of a powerhouse for jazz in the last 20 years. But in those days, it was just nice, good players. Most of them were doing other stuff than jazz. And then I think it was maybe 81 or something like that. There was a festival in Israel. And Chick Corea came, and Herbie Hancock came, and Larry Coryell came, and a lot of different people came. That was the first time I heard live jazz on that level,
Wow.
And it was really wow to see that. But I mean, blown away is when I came to New York, and I saw somebody like Barry Harris play so closely. You just sit right next to them, and to meet all these people and hang out with them, and then they'll go on stage and play like there's no tomorrow. So the blown away part happened when I arrived in New York.
So talk to me a little bit about what you like the best about this journey of being a musician. What is it that you look forward to the most?
Well, the experience of playing music is wonderful. The experience of making beauty through sounds with other people is really magnificent. That camaraderie that exists, this kind of interaction, the thing about making great music is that the thing that you are busiest doing is giving and listening, not doing and taking, and it's a great place to be in, and then to experience what comes off of it. I love meeting people. It's a wonderful way to meet people all over the world where you go. It's some kind of way, because you play music, people open up to you. People become generous to you. People want you to come and sit at their table, or they want to take you somewhere to see some great food or something like that. So it's a wonderful bridge builder. I love how you can be with people that don't speak your language, that you can't communicate at all with any kind of means, but musically you communicate beautifully. Somebody you never met before, and you play with them, whether it's a gig or just a session, and then this thing happens. I love that. I love how music can prove to the world that we are one species, that we belong to each other, that we have love for each other, and we can be with each other no matter what we look like, where we come from. Music is a beautiful way to do that. I also teach a lot, and it's beautiful to see how people's egos come down when they deal with music, how the music distracts them, and then the idea of pursuing better music, better art, more beauty, whatever it is you are after as far as playing music, becomes the goal of everyone, and they forget about themselves, whether they're adults or kids. It's magic. And also what I saw many times music do to people who have already dementia, or have grown old, that they can't really do much, but when they play music, they come back to being this young person.
Yeah, for sure. So of all of the years and musicians and veterans you've been around, what do you take from those experiences and ultimately want to give to your students? What do you want to give to them?
Well, I want to share with them, and the idea that this path of pursuing excellence in music is a path that never ends. And that if you stay open, you'll always discover wonderful things and great ideas. And that, we are part of a thing. We are not the thing. And what I saw in all the great musicians that have been around is that what matters to them first is how everybody else sounds with them. So the idea of that you're not putting yourself first, it's a great place to be emotionally and with the mentality. So to share that with them and let them have that experience where they can do that with other people. I think that I look forward to growing old with music, and I try to let my students feel it. I have many adult students. I run those jazz camps where people come and go away for a week in sort of vacation and studying jazz. So these are adult people, and to grow old with music is a wonderful thing. So I like to show them that. And also it could be a painful journey because music is very honest. So when you play, if you can't do it, or if it's over your head, or if you are a little nervous, it comes right out. So it could be very disappointing. But to show them that really music loves you, and it's just the process. So feeling inadequate doesn't mean that's not what you're supposed to do. I think that's something that is very important for people to remember. A lot of times you get discouraged. You say, well, maybe I don't have the talent. And I want to tell people, if you chose to study music, that means you have the talent of loving music, that you have the love of music, which I think is a great blessing for somebody to have.
Yeah. So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, students, but you're the one that's in control of your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
None of your business.
Right, that's right.
I'm trying to find out, I'm trying to find out, I try not to worry about that too much, like who I think I am, I just try to be. I recognize that, it's the same thing where you listen, if you remember, I think you're old enough to remember answering machines. And you listen to yourself on the answering machine and says, I don't sound like that. The way we hear ourselves is not really how people hear us or see us. So I know that sometimes I have to match that up, but I don't really think about it too much. I know that I want to play music for the rest of my life, and I love to share it with people, whether I'm performing or teaching. And I hope to always be humble enough that I don't get ahead of myself. But I think that in general, how I see myself is that I was born to do something without even realizing it. And that I'm very, very lucky to do that. And I'm very grateful for that. And I just want to always remember that I'm very lucky, and I have to be very grateful.
So
if I want to do something, I do it. So if you say my perception of myself, I have to remind myself, if it's something I want, I can do it. Yeah. So do it or not, it's up to me.
Absolutely. So if anyone wants to pick up love letters, learn more about any live shows, anything about your world, where can they go?
Well, RoniBen-Hur.com is a source. Follow me on Instagram or Facebook. I think it's the best way because that's current. Love Letter is available everywhere that albums are available now. For you go online to buy the hard copy, or all the streaming devices have it. All the streaming services have it. And as far as stores, where are the stores of the albums? Yeah. That's kind of like an old-fashioned, in the old days, a great espresso shop. I don't know, in New York you couldn't find it. Oh, there was one 20 blocks from here. Record stores became like that. So I'm not sure it's there, because I think a lot of times they deal with either older stuff, but it's pretty much available if you want it to.
Excellent. Ronnie, this has been great. Thank you so much for opening up. Thanks for the music. Best of luck with everything.
You too. Thanks for sharing. Bye-bye.
Absolutely.